Alright, section 3.5, we're skipping section 4. So this is a big like algebra section. Which is good to review. Writing equations of parallel and perpendicular lines. So first we're going to have to deal with slope. So there's many different ways to think of slope. I think the easiest way is change in y over the change in x. There's, rise over run. There's the slope formula. There's, a bunch of different ways to do it. But I think the best universal way to think about slope is change in y over change in x. Because if you have a graph, if you have points, if you have whatever, you can always do change in y over change in x. But depending on if you have rise over run, if you think of rise over run, and you have points, well, that doesn't necessarily help. If it's a graph, it works great. And you will have a graph on some of them to look at. So if you think rise over run, that's not a terrible idea. But on other ones, you're going to need to think about it in terms of points. So if we had two coordinates, okay, and we want to find the slope, okay, and so I just look at it like this, okay, well, here's the y numbers on a number line. How far is it from -1 to 7? Should be 8. And I went in the positive direction. So if I go from -1 and I go to 7, I went up by 8. Okay, so if it went lower, then you would put negative. Okay, so that's an important distinction. And then the x's, I go from 2 to 5, so I went up 3. The slope of that line is 8 over 3. Okay, so parallel lines have the same slope. Perpendicular have a negative reciprocal slope. So if the slope was 2/3, the perpendicular slope would be -3 over 2. Switch it from positive to negative and do the reciprocal. If the slope was -4, the perpendicular slope would be 1/4. Switch from negative to positive, so I'd switch the sign, excuse me, and then do the reciprocal. So if the slope was 1/2, the perpendicular slope would be -2. Okay, so your first couple problems are just looking at, there's a graph, which lines are perpendicular, which lines are parallel, and so you can do rise over run on those and just kind of count your spaces, or you can use the coordinates that are listed there. And then the second set is a list of coordinates. Tell whether the lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So if they're not the same and they're not a negative reciprocal, then they're just two lines. They're neither. Okay? Alright, then kind of the crux of the problem, of the section, if you will. So, writing parallel lines. So, the directions will say, write the equation of a line parallel to the given line and through the point. So it could give you an equation and it'll give you a point. So write the equation that's parallel to that line and goes through that point. So remember that that's our slope. Mx plus b, m is the slope. Okay, so in this problem, I already know part of my answer. My answer is going to be y equals 2x, and then I don't know what's going to go there. Because if it's parallel, it has the same slope, so it's got to start off the same. So the goal is I got to figure out what goes right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just plug in the information that I'm from this problem into y equal mx plus b. So the y is the y part of the coordinate, which is positive 1. The slope is 2. The x is the x part of the coordinate, and I don't know that part. So then it's just a matter of 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. Add 2 to both sides. And the b part is 3. So over here, and there's the line that's parallel. Okay. Let's do another one just to be sure. So if I had, some of them might start out not in slope-intercept form. So I want to make it y equal mx plus b first, because now my slope is negative 3. Okay, so if I have my point, or my line, 3x plus 7 equal, or 3x plus y equals 7, and then let's say it passes through negative 3, 4. Okay, so again, I know my answer is going to be y equals negative 3x plus, I don't know, could be minus, but I don't know that b part. So plug in my information. So the y part is 4. The slope is negative 3. And the x part is also negative 3 plus b. Okay, so negative 3 times negative 3 is 9. Subtract 9, and I get negative 5. So -5 needs to go over there. So we just write -5. Okay. So parallel. You'll have a few problems. So there's one, I was just kind of glancing at the assignment. There's one problem in your set where the line is, well, let's say like if I had the equation of a line and it said x equals 4 and then the point was 2, -3. Okay, well, kind of have to, there's no y equal mx plus b to this. So we have to understand, what does this x equal 4 line look like? It just means on the x-axis, if I went over to 4, the line looks like that. Because all the coordinates on this line, no matter where I put a point, the x part is going to be 4. 4, 1, 4, 2, 4, 3, 4, -1, 4, -2. It's always 4. So if I'm going to go through this point, 2, -3, it would be right there. And the line would have to look like that to be parallel. Which means all the x numbers are 2. That's the equation that's parallel. So if the question was perpendicular, well, I'll go over that one next when I do perpendicular. Okay, so perpendicular, negative reciprocal slope. Alright, so if we had 2x plus y equals 5. So again, we need to get this in slope-intercept form first, because it will change the slope. Okay, so our slope is -2, which means our perpendicular slope is the negative reciprocal, so it's going to be 1/2 x plus, I don't know. So that is one of the differences you gotta make sure that you pay attention to. So let's say it goes through 2, -3. Okay, so I'm still going to use y equals mx plus b. But when I plug in the information, the y part is -3. The m that I'm using is 1/2. The x is 2. Okay, so 1/2 of 2 is 1. Subtract the 1. So -4 goes over there. So really the process is the same. It's just you got to do the negative reciprocal slope. Okay? Alright, so in this section you will have a problem maybe like this. write the equation that's perpendicular to that line that goes through that point. So y equals 2 would mean on the y-axis, go to 2. So, and then it's got to go through negative 3, 1. So perpendicular would mean it's got to go like this. So an up and down line means you use the x numbers. So this line right here is x equal negative 3, and that would be the answer. So if it's parallel to an x equal or a y equal, you use the x or the y. If it's perpendicular to an x line or a y line, you use the opposite one. So if it's y equal, you use the x part. If it's x equal, you use the y part. Okay, so you'll have, like I said, the first section is just, are these lines perpendicular or parallel, or neither? And so you look for same slope or negative reciprocal. And then you'll have 4 lines of each to write. 4 lines that are parallel, 4 that are perpendicular. Just remember to get the lines in slope-intercept form if they are not already like that. And you'll have to do that on at least a couple of them as I look through. Okay? All right. Good luck, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.